Hi guys, welcome to this new video. Today I would like to chat with you a little bit about the choice of pots for a container or a balcony garden and to focus specifically on plastic versus terracotta. To chat a little bit about the differences between these two types of containers, about some advantages and disadvantages, and at the end I also want to share with you a couple of thoughts on why I'm switching some of my larger terracotta pots to plastic. In my container garden, I have all kinds of containers. I have terracotta, plastic, galvanized buckets, wooden crates, wicker baskets, grow bags, probably missing something, but yeah, pretty much any type of container that there is. But the majority of my pots are terracotta, and that's because terracotta has many great advantages. Most of all, it's a porous material, so it allows water and oxygen to pass through, which is really great for your plant's roots. It's also a great option if you tend to overwater your plants, because the soil in terracotta pots will dry out quicker. Another advantage, in my opinion, is just the look of a terracotta pot. I really like that look and kind of gives me cottage garden vibes. But that being said, terracotta also has some disadvantages, and the main disadvantage is that it's not very winter resistant. When the soil freezes, terracotta pot tends to crack. Also, terracotta is pretty heavy, and now this could be an advantage in some situations. For example, if you have a very windy terrace or a very windy balcony, terracotta provides a little bit more stability to your plants, especially those smaller plants. But if you're someone who can't lift heavy things, or you just want your pots to be lightweight because you want to move them easily, or if you have a weight limit to respect on your balcony, which most balconies have a weight limit to respect, terracotta might not be the best solution. But that being said, it would be a great option for those plants that like to slightly dry out in between watering. So herbaceous perennials, they tend to grow really well in terracotta, alpine and rock garden plants, cacti and succulents. So this would be a great option for those type of plants. Okay, so now let's move back a little and let's chat about plastic. Now, plastic has a lot of those things that could be an advantage and disadvantage at the same time, depending on the situation and depending on what you grow in them. First of all, plastic is lightweight, which can be a huge advantage for all of those reasons that I mentioned before. If you want to be able to move your pots easily, or if you can't lift heavy things, or if you want to have a lot of containers in your balcony garden but you have a weight limit to respect. In these situations, plastic will be a really good idea. But the fact that it's lightweight can also be a disadvantage, especially if you have a windy terrace and you have a lot of smaller plastic pots. These tend to fall over easily and they are very susceptible to wind. Plastic also holds on to more moisture. Here again, could be a huge advantage, especially if you have a sunny balcony and you have a hard time keeping up with watering your plants, especially during the heat of summer. Plastic will be a great option. It will be also a great option for all of those thirsty plants that like consistent moisture, that do not really appreciate sitting in dry soil. But this could quickly turn into a disadvantage, especially if you live in a rainy climate or during a rainy season where you can't control how much water your plants are getting. For example, if you have an uncovered balcony like mine. In these situations, the plant could become waterlogged and it could cause your plant to rot. Another disadvantage of plastic is that it doesn't provide a lot of insulation to plant roots during winter, and it also tends to heat up quicker during summer. So keeping that in mind, plastic will be a really great option for all of those plants that are water thirsty, that like consistent moisture. For example, in my balcony garden, I grow hydrangeas in plastic pots. Japanese maples also would grow really well in plastic pots, and all of those summer annual flowers that need frequent watering. Okay, so having said all that, why I decided to no longer buy large terracotta pots and to only buy large plastic pots and to slowly start to change all of those terracotta pots to plastic. There are two reasons for that. Reason number one is usually the larger the plant, the more water it requires. So when you grow trees and shrubs or taller, larger climbers, not only you need to water them frequently, but you also need to use large amounts of water to fully saturate all that soil in those larger containers. And then when you grow them in terracotta, terracotta dries out quicker, so you have to do it over and over and over again. So at the end, you need to water them frequently and you need to use large amounts of water to keep them happy and healthy. So by switching to plastic, that holds on to more moisture, not only you water less frequently, but you also use less water. So you keep your plants happy and you save a little bit more water. Now, the reason number two, and this is the main reason, like the fact that it holds on to more moisture is just like an additional bonus. But the main reason is that my terrace is very windy. And at the beginning, I used to buy smaller plastic pots But the problem is that each time I went out on my balcony, I saw all of those plants rolling all over the floor because they were lightweight, they didn't provide any stability. So then I figured, okay, I'm gonna switch them to terracotta because terracotta is heavy, so it provides more stability. And it does, but to those smaller pots. It doesn't work as good anymore with all of those taller trees and taller shrubs and those plants that are very top heavy that create a lot of resistance to the wind. Because these plants, no matter what you do, they are gonna fall over in the wind if you have a very windy terrace. Unless you find a way to stabilize them somehow, to attach them or to tie them to something, there's no way from preventing these plants from falling over. So over the past years, I lost more terracotta pots to wind than to frost. So I figured, okay, I'm gonna switch to plastic because plastic, even if the plant falls over and the plastic pot hits the floor, it may crack, a part of it may break off, but most likely it's gonna stay in one piece. Versus terracotta, the moment it hits this concrete floor, it shatters into 1,000 pieces. There's nothing you can do. It's really hard to repair a terracotta pot if it shatters into many pieces and you can't reuse that pot anymore. So having to change those terracotta pots 3-4 times a year, that becomes a little bit complicated. So I figured I'm gonna switch those larger terracotta pots to larger plastic pots, and I'm trying to choose plastic pots that have a wide base, that have a wide bottom, because this way they are less likely to be knocked over by the wind. And so far so good. All of these plants that I switched to plastic pots are growing healthy, happy, and none of them so far, fingers crossed, none of them fell over in the wind. So I think that long term this is also going to be a more durable solution because I won't need to replace those pots several times a year. Alright you guys, I hope that you found some helpful information in today's video and that sharing a little bit more of my experience with these two different types of containers will help you make a better decision for your plants and for your balcony garden. Thanks so much for watching, and we'll see each other in the next video.